Hi, welcome back. Today with us we have District Attorney Tony Rackauckas and Supervisor Lisa Bartlett, who are here to talk to us a little bit about something that is, very concerning in our community and is happening right underneath our noses that we just don't know about, and that's human trafficking. Welcome both of you to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So tell us a little bit about, what's going on in the community and why we need to be concerned.
Well, it's something that human trafficking is something that is increasing in all of the communities, and Orange County is no different from any other community. And it's something we all need to be aware of because we can help the victims if we know what to look for. And in the senior community, seniors they're smart, they're observant, and they're always aware of their surroundings. And so seniors can be particularly helpful to us in identifying victims of human trafficking.
Okay. All right. Now, you do have a few slides with this, so as we go along, we'll be able to show some things. So, for instance, let's talk a little bit about how does it actually happen?
Yeah, well, it starts in a number of different ways, but first of all, usually the human trafficker, who's a terrible individual, I really can't think of a bad enough name for him. I mean, what they're willing to do to people, particularly to their victims. But I think what usually happens is that they're trolling around, driving around, looking for somebody who might be a victim, and they tend to be looking for vulnerable young girls. Most of the girls start when they're 12 to 14 years old. I mean, that's the average. We have 100,000 women being used as prostitutes under the human trafficking condition in the United States right now, and the average age that they started was 12 to 14. That's true throughout. Mm-hmm. But they'll drive around looking for somebody who looks lonely or vulnerable in one way or another, maybe in a possible situation where they might be in a line or in a mall or something like that, and particularly down and out. And they'll start talking to them, and hey, how are you? Good to see you. You need a friend? Could you, would need a meal? Maybe you need a ride someplace. And then once they get them into their to the car, wherever they're going to take them, then they own them. At that point, then they start. They tell them that they're owned by this person. They do all kinds of things to them. They beat them. They torture them. They do whatever's necessary to require them or to make them, follow the rules that the human trafficker gives them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are young women, and so this is an extremely vulnerable population. Oh. And when we identify those that are involved in human trafficking, we try to connect them to services through a collaborative process. Get them into services for case management, intervention, housing, and the proper services so they can try to get their lives back in order again.
It's a pretty big industry, right?
It's a very big industry, yeah. It's billions of dollars nationally, and it's one of those things that's growing. Like gang members, for example, are finding that that is one way of making a profit, sometimes less risky than some of the other things that they do. So, right. It's growing, and it's really large.
We have a number of campaigns around Orange County. So OCTA, the Orange County Transportation Authority, has a campaign called Be the One. And we've trained our 1,200 coach operators, our bus drivers, to basically look for certain warning signs, because a lot of the victims of human trafficking, they actually take public transit. Mm-hmm. And there are certain signs to look for to help these victims, identify them, and then get them over to the authorities for help.
And what are some of those things? I mean, we have an awful lot of people here who probably use public transit, especially just outside the gates. What would be some of the things that they should look for?
I think sometimes they have identifiable tattoos or codes, things, and District Attorney Rackauckas can elaborate on some of the things that are prevalent with regard to the victims and what to look for.
Well, I think that what's important is to try to take care of the kids, like the young girls who are alone and in need. I mean, those are the ones who are going to be victims. It's tough as far as the actual victims out there working. That's tough to do. Now we're identifying them primarily by making arrests and that sort of thing. So once somebody's all tatted up and working, they're not likely to be very cooperative with people. But the kids at the bus stops or the young girls, particularly the girls who are alone, and I keep saying girls, it's not limited to girls, but it's mostly girls. But the kids who are alone that look like they're like they might be in need of something, it's not a bad idea to talk to them, and if they need some kind of services and that sort of thing, to be a provider rather than allow a human trafficker to be the provider.
Right, right. And now what if a resident has a young daughter or possibly a grandchild? What would you advise them to say to them before they went out? What would be some things that they should be aware of?
Don't talk to strangers.
Yeah. Well, we always tell them that, right? So regardless of the situation,
Right.
don't talk to
Right.
strangers.
Right.
Or maybe some things like, I know you identified some tattoos and things like that, but that's prevalent everywhere now.
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
just on folks, it's everywhere.
You know, they have to be careful about who they meet, who they associate with, who they decide to go places with in particular. I mean, we've had cases where, you know, pretty good-looking young men will meet a young lady in a mall or a shopping center or out in front of a Starbucks or something like that, and appear to be you know, friendly and nice, and then he gets control of her and winds up bringing her into human trafficking and taking her out of state or taking her away so she can't be close to her friends and associates. So it's really important to be careful who you associate with, who you talk to, who you spend time with. Never get in a car with somebody that you don't know, or somebody that you just met a few minutes ago.
Right. And let's we have our perpetrator slide here. Let's talk again about what exactly we're looking at. So we have the often prior serious violent crimes, what they've done before, right? So talk a little bit about some of the things, like are they murders? Are they robbery? What kind of things do they do?
So these perpetrators tend to be people who are just straight criminals of all kinds. And like I said before, you know, gang members are kind of finding their way into it. But a lot of people are violent people. They've had convictions of violence in the past, use of firearms, things of that nature. And usually people with pretty substantial criminal records. That's why when we prosecute somebody for these kinds of crimes, we tend to get long prison terms because of their priors. Oftentimes they're three-strike people who are you know, people who just really don't have another way of making a living, in the sense that they're not really employable. They don't want to work for a living. They just want to take from the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
okay.
it's
And
kind of a generalized thing because they come in different you know, different stripes basically.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the public places, you know, restaurants and motels, hotels, are places where a lot of the sex trafficking occurs.
Okay.
And where human trafficking, the initiation is made, for instance.
Okay.
And so it's really important for people when they're out in the public to look for any kind of suspicious behavior. Mm-hmm. And if they spot anything suspicious relative to human trafficking, there is a number they can call, a toll-free number, which is 888-373-7888. Mm-hmm. And we request anyone out there who thinks that there may be something suspicious relative to human trafficking to call that toll-free number and to report it, because we can't take action without people reporting.
Right.
Yeah, you know, it's really important to make that call, and thank you, Supervisor, for bringing that up, because so many times when people are victimized or when these kind of things happen, there's been notice. There's been somebody who's seen something but didn't say anything. So make those calls and we can prevent a lot of crime.
Okay. All right. And then, like we said before, what were some of the things that we can do beyond what the number? So what are some things like that you guys are doing? Obviously, you're here talking about it. Where else are you publicizing the information? Is it in the newspaper or how?
There have been a number of town hall meetings. So Laguna Niguel, the city of Laguna Niguel, had a town hall meeting on human trafficking a couple of months ago.
All right.
And we have different types of town halls around the county to make the public aware that this is a serious problem, and the numbers are increasing. We had 284 women last year that were identified in human trafficking.
Okay. Is that just in our county?
Yes.
Wow.
So we're getting around the county. Like the supervisor said, we're getting around and speaking to at different city councils and town halls, and the awareness is an important part of this, because the more people are aware, the better. And in particular, people need to understand that this is not just ordinary prostitution that we're seeing, and so when somebody is going out to look to solicit to get a prostitute, they need to understand that hey, you know what, they might be getting a kid or somebody who's basically a slave. They shouldn't be willing to do that kind of work. That's why we prosecute them too, by the way.
Right, right. Well, very good. And let's talk a little bit about the collaborative model that you guys are doing. I know you mentioned something that you were doing with the transit. Talk about some of the other models that you have out there.
Well, the main thing is to identify victims of human trafficking and then to work collaboratively. So we're working with the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney's Office. As I mentioned, OCTA has this major program called Be the One, and it's been very successful thus far, but we really need to get more people aware of what to look for, the warning signs, and how to report suspicious activity.
Okay, very good. And then we have one last slide there that talks a little bit about who they can call, and that was the Be the One program, right? So that was victim break free, so if you witness any suspicious activity, what was the number again?
The number is 888-373-7888, and anyone can call that number. And in particular, our seniors are out there in the community all the time, and as I mentioned before, they are always aware of their surroundings, and they're smart and observant, and we really appreciate them taking the time to just be aware of their surroundings, and if they look and see anything suspicious, to pick up the phone and call that number.
Very.
Okay. And there's a slide up right now with the newspaper. It's a registered newspaper page, and just to bring your attention to that, those are all young ladies who were taken into human trafficking, whose bodies were found someplace in Orange County during that particular year, and I think there were 18 of them that year.
Oh wow! Well, good information. I appreciate you both coming on. I think it's something we really just don't think much about, so we appreciate all the work that you're doing to help identify it and help all of us understand the problem.
Yeah, well, in order to be proactive, we've got to raise the awareness, and it's important to do that in the community.
Right, right.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
And, Supervisor Bartlett, I appreciate that very much.
Great
Thank
to
you
be
both.
here. You're welcome.
And we'll be right back.